Infant Jesus Convent Melaka, and I'm your host today. Welcome to our first debate workshop. This workshop has been possible because of so many individuals, namely Encik Hariman bin Kazali, Ms. Adeline Ong, Puan Nurul Syuhada, and Encik Zulfri. Now let me introduce myself. I have been the technical officer in charge of the debate competitions for secondary schools in Melaka for the past 4 years. Okay. So this is our first attempt at organizing a debate workshop. Everything that has to do with debating and debates. We have Miss Adeline Ong with us. She will enlighten us with everything that has to do with debates and debating. Now, before we start the workshop, I would like to invite Encik Hariman Kazali to say a few words. Encik Hariman?
Okay.
Yes.
Okey, terima kasih kepada Puan Kapana selaku pengurusi teknik debate untuk pengurusi teknik debate bagi negeri Melaka, dan yang saya hormati, sayangi Puan Adeline. Actually we have met since last year, Puan Adeline, tapi saya banyak-banyak minta maaf sebab due to this COVID dan semua benda, so apa yang kita plan tak dapat dilaksanakan. But alhamdulillah today you are here and I give kita dapat peluang ini bersama dengan Puan Adeline untuk brief atau bagi bengkel kepada kita tentang debate ni. Okey. Saya selaku pegawai meja untuk subunit Koakademik Bahasa Negeri Melaka telah mengaturkan berbagai-bagai aktiviti, khususnya bengkel, khususnya nak beri pendedahan kepada semua warga pendidik dan murid di negeri Melaka, especially untuk debate, acara yang agak teknikal, yang dia bukan macam semudah storytelling, public speaking, which mungkin kebanyakan cikgu secara general boleh melatih. But for debate dia agak unik sedikit sebab dia memerlukan kepakaran teknik dan cara yang tertentu supaya kita dapat melakukannya sebaik yang mungkin, khususnya untuk kita hantar ke peringkat kebangsaan. Di sini saya nak mengatakan mungkin ada yang tidak mengenali, tapi saya rasa ramai yang lebih mengenali ataupun biasa dengar Blubricks. I think belah-belah Melaka Tengah, I think mungkin ketiga-tiga daerah memang biasa dengan Blubricks. I think yang memang concern ataupun parent yang memang nakkan anaknya memang akan mengenali Blubricks. I think ramai kan pelajar yang pergi ke Blubricks ni, ramai. Tapi mungkin ada juga yang parent, guru yang tak tahu berkenaan dengan Blubricks. Nanti saya minta Puan Adeline mungkin dapat promote sedikit untuk awalnya apa Blubricks ini, so that later on kalau misalnya nak hantar anak supaya lebih. Memang saya pernah first time saya menerima jemputan daripada Blubricks, I think for the drama, right, yang dekat Bandar Hilir. Very interesting sebab pelakon-pelakonnya di kalangan anak-anak kita juga, tapi lakonan mereka sangat mantap. Even though macam contoh ada watak yang dilakukan oleh orang tua apa semua, I thought umur dia dah memang tua, tapi dia membawa watak tu dengan gaya bahasa, ekspresi muka memang sangat menarik. Hopefully mungkin selepas ini kita dapat kerjasama daripada Blubricks lah, so that kualiti anak-anak murid kita akan mencapai. Saya kalau buat setting, kalau apa-apa, I don't go for state ataupun for negeri kita, tak. I will look into international. So bila kita dah letak satu benchmark yang tinggi, jadi kita akan betul-betul beri saingan. Kalau kita just sorry to say so-so, memang kita susah sikit lah. Nowadays dunia tanpa sepadan, jadi expose tu sangat luas. Jadi kita memang tak boleh just yang so-so tu lah. Dan kita kena, we have to be excellent in everything what we do. Okay, satu lagi saya nak, kalau boleh ramai menyertai, ambil peluang ini. Bukan senang nak dapat Puan Adeline. I know she was so busy, dia sangat sibuk untuk apa ni. Bila tahun lepas bila nak susun pun kita terpaksa susun dan terpaksa batal dan COVID datang dan everything. So tak apa ni. Jadi ambil peluang ini, kesempatan ini, dengar, tanya apa-apa yang patut. supaya especially untuk debate ni. Jadi saya rasa itu sahaja daripada saya. Terima kasih sekali lagi Puan Adeline kerana sudi hadir pada taklimat kita pada petang ini. Terima kasih juga pada Cikgu Kapana yang saya tahu dia pun sibuk juga. Dia sangat sibuk dan dia try to find time dapatkan Puan Adeline dan adakan bengkel kita pada petang ini. Terima kasih juga pada teknikal kita, PICT, Cikgu Nurul Syuhada dan teknikal di belakang tabir. Saya tak perasan tadi dengar saya sebab saya terpaksa low down the volume. Itu Cik Zufri ke Cik Amir? Orang kapal tak kisahlah. Siapa yang di belakang tabir tu saya ucapkan terima kasihlah petang ni dan diorang pun memang all-rounder daripada hari ni, esok, lusa, tulat semua akan terlibat untuk program bengkel-bengkel yang diadakan untuk aktivitas masa. Jadi dengan itu saya serahkan kembali kepada Puan Kapana supaya dapat melaksanakan program pada pagi ini dengan jayanya. Cuma saya nak ingat akan ada 3 kata kunci, 3 keywords to make sure that you are in this bengkel from the start until end of the bengkel, end of the workshop, then baru you akan pass untuk submit borang kehadiran. Tidak tak saya. Then the keyword will be given early, middle and at the end of the bengkel. Okay, the rest I think Cikgu Kapana akan beritahu. Okay, itu aja. Terima kasih. Bye.
Kapana, we can't hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Encik Hariman. Encik Hariman is actually the penolong pengarah Sektor Pembangunan Bakat Murid JPN Melaka. Okay, thank you again for your words of encouragement and advice. So, boys and girls, if you're listening, I hope after today's workshop, we will have more teams participating in the debate competition this year, the Melaka State Debate Competition. Okay, now, with me, I have a very experienced trainer. But before that, I know that many of you, boys and girls, many of you are first-time debaters. You have no experience whatsoever. So that's the reason, the purpose of this workshop. Okay, we hope this workshop will benefit you in many ways, and we hope you will become successful speakers, good speakers. All right. Now, without further ado, I would like to invite our presenter, Ms. Adeline Ong, to deliver her presentation. But before that, let me just a short introduction about Ms. Adeline. Ms. Adeline is the principal and director of Blubricks Melaka. She has trained many young talents till they have become champion speakers. Now, Ms. Adeline has a decade of experience. All right. So I hope Ms. Adeline will be able to enlighten all of you. Okay, and finally, after listening to her, please don't forget, like what Encik Hariman has reminded you, there are 3 keywords. You have to watch from the beginning until the end of the workshop to get the 3 keywords. Only then you'll be able to get the inserts. Yeah? Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you are all eyes and ears. All right, Adeline, over to you. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Puan Kapana, and a special thank you to Encik Hariman for giving me this opportunity today to facilitate a debate workshop. Hi, everyone. My name is Adeline. I'm sorry if you look at the screen, I think I was informed that you're looking at my daughter's name, Hazel. My sincerest apologies because I don't use Google Meet, so I had to use my daughter's account. So do excuse me and don't get confused. My name is Adeline. It is not Hazel. Hazel is my daughter. So before I begin, I think some of you do know who I am, but what Blubricks does, I represent Blubricks, and what Blubricks does is that actually we are a huge speech and drama center. We've been very blessed this past decade we started off with only 4 students, and we ended up with almost close to 400 students. These 400 students are from all over. And when I say all over, we have students, of course, in Melaka. We also have students from Johor. And like they say, there is always a rainbow after the rain. In this case, due to the pandemic, One silver lining is that we've been able to reach out to even students in KL as well. So right now, what we teach is that we teach communication skills, which some might know as public speaking, and we do speech and drama, in which case we focus on storytelling. We also just recently started a program for English, which focuses on phonic sounds, reading, and grammar, and writing as well. Because during our process as teaching speech and drama and communication skills, we noticed that there is a huge problem when it comes to the English language, and many struggle with the proficiency. So that was why we started and introduced a reading program, which actually also comes from UK, and it complements. And I do understand that there are some teachers who actually implements the same program in their teaching in school as well. But I can't say whether there are any who are implementing it in Melaka. That I would not know. I have not had the pleasure of meeting them. So back to the subject at hand, we are here today to talk about the debate workshop. And I know that many, every time we talk about debates, I know that a lot of you would be very scared of debates. The very word debates terrifies a lot of people. But you know, what you may not realize is, as I tell my students, is that you debate every single day. You just don't realize that. You debate with your parents when your parents don't want you to go to your friend's birthday party, and you have to defend your case because you have to prove to them why it is a good idea for them to let you go to a birthday party. Or you want to go to your favorite band's concert and your parents are against it, and you have to prove why it's okay to let you go. So these actually are debates, because if you look at my screen here, I'm going to share with you now my slides. Please bear with me for a minute because I'm very new to Google Chrome, to Google Meet. Right. So what is a debate? So what is a debate? A debate is a competition. In this case, what you're looking at is a competition in which teams of people, and often students, discuss a subject, and the team that is judged to make the best argument wins. So if you look at this, right, I mean, if you really look at this, it really does sound a little bit like what? The team of people, in which case could be you and your sibling, often discuss a subject with your parents, and the team that makes the best argument wins. So in which case, if you make a better case against your parents will give in. So that constitutes a debate, does it not? But today we're not talking about a family debate. Today we are talking about this debate. We're talking about you preparing for the English language debate competition, the particularly, I think, better known as the WIRA event. So let's move forward here to, I don't know whether you are aware, but actually there are about 6 different types of debates. However, I'm not going to go through every single one of them, but the more common ones that you might be familiar with would be the presidential debates. Now, presidential debates, just like the word president itself, actually is a debate that is conducted by presidential candidates. In short, this would refer to presidents or candidates who are who are fighting for or eyeing the president role. That is, of course, America. America is very popular for their presidential debates. Now, of course, what we're talking about today are the parliamentary debates. Now, parliamentary debates, actually, there are 2 forms. You have the Asian parliamentary debates, and you also have the British parliamentary debates. The ones that we would be talking about here would be very similar to the Asian parliamentary debates. Because the British parliamentary debates is very different. It's quite interesting, actually. They actually have 2 groups for government and 2 groups for in those two groups in government, each group consists of 2 speakers only, in which case, therefore, there will be 2 groups, 4 speakers for government. There will be 2 groups, 4 speakers for opposition. But that is British style. But today we're not talking about that. We'll be talking about the Asian style. Now, we have also another one, which I suspect some students here would have probably experienced this. It's called the spontaneous argumentation, which is better known as the World Scholars Cup. Now, under the World Scholars Cup, it's an international event. Their debates are slightly different because unlike your debates in school, where you are given about an hour to discuss and prepare your case, in a spontaneous argument, it is spontaneous, meaning that you're only given the motion about 15 minutes before you have to present your case. In short, you have only 15, not 50, not 50, but 15 minutes to actually do research and present your case. And the students are still quite able to do it, in case some of you are wondering. Right. Now, a lot of you will probably be wondering, why should I join debates? What is the point of joining debates? It's one of the most scariest events to you because you don't know what to say. Well, there are many benefits, to be honest, one of which is throughout the process of learning debates, you would eventually learn to develop very sound and logical arguments. Sound and logical means the way you present your cases, you will learn to construct your arguments in such a way that everyone will be able to understand you. So does that mean you can't do it now? You don't know how to do it now? Well, it's not that you don't know, but a lot of students are guilty of copying something from a website and pasting it and then just reading it out loud. That's not developing a sound and logical argument. That is actually mimicking. So what you need to do is the challenge is to read what you are reading, make sense out of it, and reconstruct or restructure your sentences so that you would be able to understand it. Next, yes, helps to think on your feet, the critical thinking part. Many times we talk about critical thinking, but we don't really know what critical thinking means. It actually means to be able to think on your feet, to think very quickly. Now, how does that happen? Sometimes in the middle of a debate, your opposition throws you a POI, in which I will explain later, which is called point of interest. And when they throw you the POI, you could, of course, choose to decline it, but it wouldn't look good for you to continuously decline their POI. It merely affects your marking, and it also shows that you are not knowledgeable in terms of the case. So if you participate in debates, it will help you to very quickly think of replies for your opponents. Now, increased understanding of multiple sides of important issues. I think this is very important because I've noticed many a times a debater is so enthusiastic and so absorbed in finding points to defend their case that they fail to even consider to spend some time to think what the opposite side might be thinking or what kind of arguments they might throw to you. And that's very important because being able to foresee what they're going to say will help you to establish a stronger case against them. So therefore, what this means is that you must be able to, if you are government, you must also think as opposition. And if you are opposition, you must also think how the government would think. Now, hone research skills while preparing for debates. I think the most difficult thing for students is that they don't even know how to key in the keywords to search for the points that they need. Now, this is not something that can be developed overnight. This is a skill, which is why it's called a skill. This is a skill that you will need to develop slowly along the way. But the more you keep at it, the better you will get. That I promise you. So there is some truth to the saying that practice makes perfect. But research skills are important so that you would be able to eventually find the relevant points or the relevant information that would help strengthen your case. Improving on public speaking skills. Okay, there is this huge marking that I will talk to you later, and this is about the skills of speaking. Skills of preparing a speech, skills of writing a speech is one thing, but the skills of presenting is also another part. We in communication skills has always believed that we on communication skills has always believed that it is important to be able to speak as well as write. The last one is developing leadership skills. So the ability to have to create sound and logical arguments, the ability to critical think, the ability to think quickly on their feet, and the ability to conduct research. All these would boost your self-confidence level, which is why, therefore, it would help to develop good leadership skills. Okay. Right. I'm supposed to move on to format. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, but it seems that my slides are stuck. Just let me, just a minute. I'm going to stop sharing for a while. It seems that my slides are stuck. Is it stuck? Let me just try. Would someone be able to tell me if they can see my slides?
Yes, we are able to see your slide.
Puan
Okay.
Adeline tak perlu slideshow. Just fokus pada skrin ni saja.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Oh,
Understand?
Okay,
Because
okay.
share window. So they all cannot see. So just focus for this slide only. This file.
okay. Oh, so I don't need to animate it? Don't press the slideshow. Okay. All right. So now, sorry. So now we'll go to format. All right. So when it comes to format, we have the parliamentary style of debates we're talking about here. So in the parliamentary style of debates, you have your government, your opposition, your speaker, and your timekeeper. So let's move on to this part here. I can't animate. Okay. So if you look here on the government side, we have first speaker, second speaker, and third speaker for the government side. There'll be 3 speakers on the government side. And the opposition side, you have your first speaker, your second speaker, and your third speaker. Then you have, of course, the Speaker of the House. Now, the Speaker of the House, if it is a female, you would address that person as Madam Speaker. Or if it is a male, then you could address him as Mr. Speaker or the Speaker of the House. Of course, you have your panel of judges. Now, let's look at the format in which they would speak. I've actually created some form of art here, but if without the slideshow, what? Okay, so moving on. Right. So we have first speaker of the government side would start first. If you look at the arrows, the first speaker of the government side would start first, and they would have 8 minutes to speak, followed by the first speaker of the opposition side, who would also have 8 minutes to speak, followed by the second speaker of the government side that would have 8 minutes to speak, and subsequently the second speaker of the opposition side, who would also have 8 minutes to speak. Now, you probably noticed that in this particular slide, the third speaker is not called the third speaker, we sometimes refer to him as the whip. And he too or she too will have 8 minutes to speak. Subsequently, the last but not least speaker will be the opposition side third speaker, who would also be referred to as the whip, and he or she would also be given 8 minutes to speak. So in conclusion, every speaker, either from the government side or the opposition side, would have 8 minutes to speak each. Now, I would like, however, to bring your attention to this particular table here. So if you notice, the first turn, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth. However, there is a seventh here, in which case the final would be a reply speech. But the reply speech would begin with the opposition side first. That particular reply speech would be 4 minutes long, and usually the reply speech would be presented by either the first or the second speaker. Subsequently will be followed by the government side's reply speech, which also in this case actually is also another 4 minutes, and it also could be the first or the second speaker of the government from the government team. So I was told to stop for a while now because Madam Kapana is supposed to provide a keyword before I proceed to the roles of debaters. Madam Kapana?
Yes, Adeline. Okay. Okay, students, boys and girls, are you ready for the first keyword? Okay, can we have the slide, Shoda? Okay, this is the first keyword, parliamentary. Parliamentary. Make sure you get the word spelled correctly with capital letters. Capital letters. Okay, again, the word is parliamentary. Capital letters. The Google form is very case sensitive, so if you write this word in small letters, small cases, it will be rejected. Okay, girls? Boys, girls, done? All right, thank you. Adeline, back to you.
Okay, thank you. So everybody I hope you got the keyword there. Moving on to the next part. Right, I assume everybody can see my slide. So this is the important part, knowing the roles of your debaters. So in this slide, you will see that in the government team, the first speaker is actually also known as the Prime Minister, because you know that in your present government, as in your actual government, you do have a Prime Minister, you have a Deputy Prime Minister. And in the opposition side, you know that you have your Leader of Opposition as well as your Deputy Leader of Opposition. Now, the third speakers, if you notice here, are considered the whips. So we know that what is the function of a whip? A whip is like a cane. Basically, they lash out. They lash out for what purpose? To protect, to defend. So that is the role of a third speaker. So if you look at these particular roles here, every speaker actually plays a very important role. I know how some of my students, they like to manipulate these roles. They like to, they think something that, oh, if I become the Prime Minister, I just need to say this much. I don't need to do any rebuttals. I don't need to do this. So I'm pretty much safe. Actually, every speaker assigning roles for debaters, for the government and the opposition, actually is a game of strategy. Who you assign as the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister and the whip actually goes according to the strengths of the students. You have some who are very good speakers. However, it's challenging for them to use wit and maybe a little bit of sarcasm to rebut. Therefore, they make better prime ministers or a better prime minister. However, you have some who may struggle with the research part and finds it a little bit difficult to or they are more conversant and more versatile and up for the challenge of rebuttals, in which case then they make the better whip. Therefore, the conclusion for this part is that assigning a speaker for a role is not a random picking numbers. It is actually a game of strategy to choose the students with the better strengths. Now, first speaker of the government side, what should they say? Well, firstly, the first thing that they should do is actually to define the topic, or better known as the motion. Later, I will touch on the part on how do you define a motion. Establishing the issues in the motion, establishing the problems that they are trying to highlight in the motion, outlining the government's case. What does it mean by outlining the government's case? My teacher would put it in this analogy. Say, for example, you have to imagine yourself, the first speaker is the builder of a railway track. So meaning that his other speakers, he's going to be the head of that train. And the carriages that follows behind him is the second speaker and the third speaker. So in which case, it's his job to make sure that he builds a good track so that the other two would be able to travel on it together with him. Meaning that not only does he have to define or give just his point, he would have to outline what his entire team intends to do for this motion. What does he intend to prove? What is his team intends to prove for his case? The fourth point, which is announcing the case division between the debaters, meaning that after he tells or she tells, the first speaker tells the audience or the judges that this is how I'm going to prove the case, then he or she will need to explain how his second speaker is going to complement his point by giving their points. What would be a sort of like an outline of their points, a sort of like a summary of their points. And then only after defining your motion, establishing the issues in the motion, and outlining their stand on the matter, as well as announcing what their fellow compatriots are going to say in the motion, in their case, then only he would then proceed with presenting his part of the case, or in this case, his point. All right? Now, after the first speaker of the government side moves to the first speaker of the opposition side, who would also be better known as the leader of the opposition. Now, they are slightly different. The first speaker of the opposition has an additional role to do before the first speaker of the government, which is only to define the motion. Their role would include or would require them, before he even begins to outline his team's stand on the case, outlines his team's case or stand for the motion, he would then need to first rebut the government speaker. So what does he rebut? Well, for example, rebuttal means a disagreement, how he chooses to, what he feels he disagrees with what the other speaker has said. Now, when he responds to the government case, there would be two things that he might want to look at. He might want to look at how he might disagree on the first speaker's way or choice of words of defining the motion. He could choose to disagree on that within certain confines. Then, of course, he could also choose to disagree not only with the definition, but with the very point that the government had presented, that the Prime Minister had presented, before he sets out to outline his team's defense on the case, and therefore announcing the divisions of cases, meaning that how he and what his fellow speakers would be saying or proving or how they would prove that they are right in this motion. Then only followed by that, he would then present his or her part or his or her point for the opposition side. Now, followed by, after the first speaker, followed by the second speaker of the government side, in which case you would then, the second speaker would have the opportunity of dealing with the definition again. So say the first speaker of the leader of opposition disagrees with the way the way he defines the motion is not agreed by the second speaker of the government. So he could then reiterate that definition by reaffirming what his first speaker has said, and then followed by a subsequent response to a rebuttal to indicate what he might disagree with the point that was provided or presented by the opposition side, and then only followed with his point. After the second speaker of the government side, you have the second speaker of the opposition side, in which case deals with the definition again. Now, the definition is very important, which is why if you notice that the first speaker, all speakers would continuously try to redefine or reaffirm their stand on the definition, because if you're not able to define the motion accurately or correctly, your whole case might crumble. So which is why to define the motion accurately or correctly to serve, to benefit your team is very important. Followed by, of course, the rebuttals, and then continuing with your point, with the point in which you wish to represent your argument to defend your case. Now, the third speaker of the government and the opposition. The third speaker of the government and opposition do not, if you look at the words in red, the third debater does not present any new points. They're not supposed to. What they're supposed to do actually is just to summarize up the summarize up all the points. Basically, their job is to, that's why they act like a wave. They lash out, they rebut all points from the opposing side. Meaning that if you're the government side, you would then reaffirm all the points of your first and second speaker, and at the same time, just present, respond that or rebut the points presented by the first and second and the third speaker of the opposing side. They can give new examples. So say for example, you're from the government side and the opposition side has challenged his fellow friends on examples. So in which case, he has the opportunity to present new examples, but not new arguments. They're not new points, just new examples to reaffirm what they're trying to say. Basically, he's trying to explain to the other side why his friends said what they said. Yeah, so that's the role of the Prime Minister of the government side, the leader of the Prime Minister, the leader of the opposition, the deputy minister of the government side, deputy leader of opposition, and the whip of both the government and opposition. This is basically their duties, to sum it up, meaning that the first speaker is very importantly needs to define and to outline the case so that his other fellow friends can jump on board, and the opposition of the first speaker would need to do the same, but he would need to rebut first. And then, of course, the second speaker to rebut first before presenting his point alone. And of course, the second speaker of the opposition is to respond and to rebut before presenting his own case. And then, of course, the third speaker from both sides are merely to focus on their rebuttals. Right. A reply speech. Now, after the first second, and third speaker of the government side has presented their case, followed by the first, second, and third speaker of the opposition side. The opposition side will now need to present their reply speech, which should be about 4 minutes long. The reply speech. So what's a reply speech? If you look here, a reply speech is actually an analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of the case of both sides. And the objective of a reply speech is to just give biased judgment as to why people should support the team's claim. Now, how do I make this clear for you? A reply speech is like a closing argument in a court case. You know, if you watched any kind of movie where it involves a trial with a panel of jury and the judge, what happens at the end of both sides presenting their arguments to protect or to prosecute a person, each side will be given the opportunity to actually sum up their entire case, to sum up what they actually stand for in their case. And if you notice the word the objective, it is a very biased judgment, in which case the way you sum up or the way your reply speech sounds is basically just to tell the judges why, because based on the evidence that they have provided, based on the arguments that they have provided, they actually provide sound or better argument to defend their case, and that is why the panel of judges should support them and find them as the winning party for this particular motion. That is what the reply speech is supposed to do. Now we're going to move on to the definition of cases, but I believe Puan Kapana is supposed to present the second keyword.
No, not yet. Adeline, not yet.
Okay, all
Finish
right.
your definition first.
Okay,
What are you doing? Lisa, go ahead. Hey, what's it? Lisa, tonight.
okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so all right, let's proceed on. Sorry about that for a minute there. Let's move on to the definition of cases. This is considered to be one of the most difficult part that most students find the challenge, because if you're not able to define your motion well, therefore the motion is everything. Being able to define the motion is everything. If you're not able to define the motion well, you would not be able to create the right defense for your case. Yeah. So let's look at certain terms first before we continue. This would be what we call as emotion. For example, in this one, this house regrets the misrepresentation of Asian culture in children's films. This is what we consider emotion, or you might want to call it, those who do not know might say it's a title, but this is what we call emotion. Now, a case is basically your stand on the motion. Case means if you are for the government, then your case would be what you're trying to say, or what you'll be trying to prove in this motion is that you do regret because you represent the government. This house means the government. And so as government, we are going to say that we regret the misrepresentation of Asian culture in children's films. As the opposition side, therefore, we would specify that we disagree with the misrepresentation of Asian culture in children films. So case means your stand on the motion, depending on which side you are. You represent, whether you represent the government side or the opposition side. Arguments are actually referring to your points, defending your case. How do you wish, or what do you wish to say to defend your case, your points? How would you be able to do that? Right, so let's move on to the next part. How do we defend a motion? Defending a motion, basically these are 4 things that you might want to look for when you're defending a motion. First thing, the subject matter. Subject matter could refer to keywords in the motion. What are the keywords that you might want to look for in a motion? And what would be the hidden problem in the motion? That means, what is the underlying issues in the motion? Because you see, a debate, when you're setting up your case, setting up your case is like storytelling. In storytelling, you have your characters, you have your settings, you have your plot line. When you are trying to set up your case, it is quite similar. Basically, your motion is your whole entire story, and the subject matter would be the keywords in the motion, and what would be the hidden problem in the motion, in the entire motion. Context refers to setting. Setting means, where does this particular motion happens, the time that this motion happens. We're not talking about what time of day. It could be talking about when, period of time, or place could be where does this entire motion happens, in which case I will explain to you in the next slide. Stakeholders are those who are most affected by this particular motion. Who are most affected by this motion? And then the last but not least would be the burdens, which means how you need to provide proof or look for proof to substantiate your arguments. And burdens of proof would also be, how would you present your case in a way to prove that you are right, that in the event that this matter is to continue, or this problem is to continue in the long run, what would be the consequences if this matter was to continue? So when we define a motion, these are the 4 things that we might want to look out for. For example, the keywords. Firstly, looking at the keywords of the motion, what would be the keywords and the underlying problem or the hidden problem that can be found in the motion. Next will be followed by, of course, the setting, the context, the place and the time where the problem happens, and the stakeholders, who would be the parties or the people, the victims that would be most affected by this particular motion. And of course, you have your burdens, which would be your burden of proof. When you make such a claim, when you are providing your arguments for your case, you cannot, in a debate, provide an argument without giving any form of proof. Proof is very important because the judges will take into consideration whether you have any sound proof or evidence or data or statistics to back up your claims. Now, for example, if you look here, I have here a motion. THBT means this House believes that the United Nations has failed. So if you look at this motion, what would be the subject matter? What would be the key word? Of course, the key word here would be the United Nations. And what would be the problem? The problem would be that they have failed. So if you look here, the summary, the problem would be the world's going through some mess about problems involving human rights. Because firstly, in a case like this, in a motion like this, if you are the government side, let's look from the perspective of government side. When you're defining this motion, you look for the keywords, in which case the United Nations, and what is the problem from this motion, in which case the United Nations has failed. How? Failed by performing or by fail to achieve the objectives that they had set out to do when they were first formed. So what is context? Context, if you look here, context actually refers to place and time where this problem occurs. So in context here, the parts of the world, the place where this occurs are the parts of the world where the UN is expected by society to help them solve these messes. Meaning there are parts of this world where they have trust in the United Nations and they hope that the United Nations will be able to resolve their issues, to preserve peace, to preserve human rights. So parts, where would these places be? For example, in the United Nations, examples would be the Rwanda case, the massive killing in Rohingya. These are the places that are severely affected and where it is claimed or it's accused that the United Nations has failed in their efforts to do what they were set out to do. The stakeholders here, now stakeholders are the people that will be most affected by this motion. And when we talk about the people most affected by this motion, you have to see it as not one individual, but it can be many different parties that will be affected by this particular by this motion. So in this case, the United Nations themselves could be a stakeholder mostly impacted by this motion. The states that are in crisis, like I said, the Rwandas, the Rohingyas, these would be the people that are the victims of the war, the people in crisis or the society. Now, burdens are the burdens of proof where if you are the government side and you will need to prove that the United Nations has failed in their efforts, you will need to show proof that they have not lived up to their names due to the high standards. Give examples, examples where they have not been able to execute their duties. And on top of that, you should be able to specify, or you should specify how these crises are still ongoing, and despite the numerous attempts and efforts, and despite how long the time has gone by, it still remains unsolved. So if you are the government team in this particular motion, and that your duty, your stand on this motion will be to prove that the United Nations has failed, you would need to define, look at the motion and define the subject matter, which in this case is the United Nations. At least specify what is the problem, and then specify the part of the world where their failure has impacted, and followed by stakeholders, referring to the numerous parties that would be affected by this particular failure. And also your onus of proof or your burden of proof, in which case when you make a claim like this, you need to be able to prove to everyone your claims. You can't just randomly say, I think that the United Nations has failed. You can't do that. It's just the same like if I want to bring you back to the previous idea where if you're going to have a debate with your mom on why you feel that they should allow you to go to a particular concert, of course you would have to give proof. Like, see, I've got good results. My previous midterms exams did very, very well indeed. And, all these proof you will need to show so that it validates your argument. So in this case, you will need to show the same proof, and this is where research is important. Most debates, motions, requires a lot of reading. As I understand, in the in the schools debate, unlike the world scholars, they are not allowed to go on websites to do their research before they present their case, which therefore means they would need to, all of you would need to read up, to be more knowledgeable to be more knowledgeable before you present your case. Now, usually, when it comes to preparing for a motion, there are actually 3 ways to look for your points. The first way would be on what you know about the matter. Sometimes some questions or some motions they ask are quite easy, that doesn't require you to do much research. You probably would have had some form of information, like this house finds that companies are guilty for contributing to pollution. So we all have read somewhere along the way about how companies are being profit orientated and that they are a major contributory factor to pollution. So we can follow with our common knowledge as the first point. Usually when a student is given a motion, I usually encourage the student not to go on the website first, because when you start to look at a website, the problem is that you'll be so engrossed in your research that you would not be able to think. What you would do is that you would copy whatever information you have there and literally just read it out from a piece of paper, which would be detrimental to your presentation. It would definitely lower your marks because you're reading and you're not presenting. Furthermore, when you're reading the materials, we will be able to tell, the judges will be able to tell that it's not your words, it's someone else's words. And it would also affect your understanding on the subject, because you would not be able to, the choice of words that you say, the way you read your arguments, the way you display your arguments, it will be very clear to the adults that you do not understand what you're trying to say. Which is why when you are given the motion, if you have this, if you know what to look for in this case, like the subject matter, identifying the problems and where this happens, you should be able to prepare a reasonable stand for your case without having to refer to the materials first. Like, for example, we all know what United Nations stands for, especially you should, because this organization this agency has been around since 1945, and it will be good to read up on it. Right. Puan Kapana, am I supposed to move on to POI, or would you like to present your second word first? Puan Kapana? Hello? Okay, so while waiting for everybody to come back on, I'm sorry, I'm just going to, just going to come back on again for a minute here. Right, let's move on to, now, when you are giving, why is it important for you to give proof for your argument? If you don't provide proof for your argument, you're literally opening up some problems for yourself in the event, because your fellow opponents are allowed to do what is called a POI. So what's a POI? A POI is short for a point of information. So the very word itself, point of information, what does it mean? Basically, it means that your opponents are allowed to question you to seek further clarification on your claims. Therefore, if most of the times you present your arguments with no sound research or sound evidence or some kind of proof to your claims, it won't look good for you if you're not able to defend it with some form of evidence or research. Okay, so what's a POI? A POI is a form of interjection. It's an interruption to seek clarification or to point out the debater's flawed point. Now, in a POI, what happens is that in the middle of the, say for example, in the middle of a prime minister's speech, the government side, he's presenting his points about why he feels that the United Nations has failed, okay? The deputy minister, sorry, not the prime minister, the deputy minister. So in the middle of his presentation, the timekeeper would actually ring the bell after the first minute, indicating to the other side that they have the opportunity now to commence seeking clarification to whatever statements that he is making. So after that bell, say for example, the other side chooses to seek, choose to seek clarification, yeah, meaning that, or to point out a flaw in his comments. So say for example, he says that, he could, for example, if the government says, United Nations has failed because of their they've not been able to execute the Rohingya look at the Rohingya case, or they say we feel that the United Nations has failed because of their failure to execute their objectives. There's been a lot of failures in their life so far. So the POI from the other side could say, could you clarify as to what are the examples are you specifying here? So in which case the speaker, if it is the deputy minister of the government side, now in a POI, you have a choice. You have a choice of either accepting or declining the POI. However, you are encouraged to at least accept two, all right, of these of the POI. If you don't do it, then it will look very badly for your team. It would seem as if your team is ill prepared and do not have enough evidence to back up your statement, which is why if you look at the role of a debater earlier that I said, being able to think for both sides of an argument, this is where it becomes very important, because if you're able to think, if you're from the government side, you would probably be able to foresee that these are the kind of questions that the opposition would highlight. So therefore, you might want to keep some, we call it secret weapons or hidden notes here somewhere, in which case, anticipating these POIs, you will be able to reply. Accepting these POIs are important. You don't necessarily have to accept all, but you should at least be encouraged to accept at least a minimum of two. So now each team member should be offered between 2 to 4 points of information per speech, meaning that also, say for example, you're the one seeking clarification, or say for the example, when the government side is presenting their arguments, the opposition side should, to some point of time, listen and try to find a flaw and challenge them by presenting some POIs. If the opposition doesn't allows the speaker to continue throughout his whole speech without a POI, it may appear as if that either that speaker is so good in his presentation that he has his points so sound that they cannot challenge it, or it would appear as if that other side lacks the skills, the listening skills, or they're not able to understand his point so well that they're not able even to challenge him for even one point of information. So in short, a POI is very important. You should try to listen and to seek clarification, because there would be some, usually like in any kind of case, in any argument, there would usually be some weak statements that you would be able to find and point out. If you are the opposition and the government side has some flaws, if you choose to keep quiet about it, you are actually, in a way, almost like giving them free marks. Or choosing not to say something about it may not help you in this particular debate. Yeah. All right. So let me see. The debater can choose. Okay. Puan Kapana.
Yeah,
would you
I'm
like?
back. Sorry,
Would you like to?
yes. I'm sorry. My laptop went to sleep for a while. Now
It's okay because for 1 minute I thought my line completely suspended itself. So I was panicking and I thought that I was probably talking to myself all this while and there was no one actually online listening. So that kind of worried me for a minute there as well. Yeah.
No. Okay. I'm back. Okay. Let's get to the second keyword, shall we, Shwada? Okay, Shwada, please hold on. Do not show the slide yet. I have been getting reports that some of you students, you are not listening to the speaker. You are actually chatting, right? And my friends here, they have actually taken photos of your chats and sent to me. And you have also mentioned, one of you mentioned your school. That's very embarrassing. Please, okay? This is live, and if you misbehave, your whole school will be a laughing stock. Please stop. Okay, thank you. Shwada, Ken, come. Slide, please. Okay, this is the second keyword. What's the word? Whip. Again, you must write in capital letters. Okay, second keyword, whip. All right, you got it down? Okay, let's finish the workshop. Back to you, Adeline.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just thinking that your second keyword is so suitable for currently. It can be a figure of speech or it can be very literal. To the comment that you just used.
Yes.
Yeah.
For the students who are misbehaving right now.
Okay, I mean, debates is probably not their forte, but the benefits of debates are actually rather important. But as I always tell my students, they have the same issues in my class, particularly since this is a virtual platform. They seem to think that they're non-traceable if they change their names and call themselves Spider-Man, or if they change their names and call themselves Google Man, because nobody would know or be the wiser. However, with the new norm, but I do tell my students this, with the new norm, which is virtual platform, and with the present pandemic situation, we do not know when it will lighten up. It has become something that requires also proper protocols, proper etiquette, like normal studying in school. Like for example, even in physical class, you wouldn't think of turning around or talking to the friend behind you if you have a very strict teacher in the class. However, when it comes to virtual, it's the same. It's the same concept, it's the same idea. You should be listening, and chatting is a form of actually talking in class while someone else is talking. So probably kids, and I call you kids, yeah? Maybe you might want to think of that, yeah? All right? Okay. So, I've pretty much gone through everything from motions to the roles of the debaters, and how you define a motion. Yeah, what keywords to look at and specify what the underlying problem is. Now, let's look at the marking scheme. The marking scheme is actually provided in the concept paper. However, I'm going to talk about something that maybe it would benefit all students here. You might say, I don't really care for debates because I'm just here for the e-cert. So doesn't matter, but what I'm about to tell you will actually affect you and benefit you all the way till you become a working grown-up. Unless, of course, you are here to tell me that you are blessed and you will not need to work to the rest of your life because you have a very wealthy family or you come from a wealthy family. But I do understand that even wealthy families, your wealth will need to grow, therefore you will need to work. So marking standards, what do judges look for? Well, these are the marking standards, okay? You have your overall, you have your content, you have your style, and you have your strategy. Now, I would not particularly, I've already touched basically on how you define your motion, how you present your arguments, and how you should POI to gain more marks when it comes to this debate. However, I would like to touch more on style, which is language and manner. Now, if you look at style, it's divided into language and manner, which is 20/20 each. In the real world, right, there is a saying. In any presentation, I always tell my students this. It doesn't really matter sometimes how good your speech is. You could have written a speech that you think would win you a gold prize. However, if you present it in a weak and a very lackluster manner, in which case, your presentation is unimpressive, with very light tones, with hardly any eye contact. Like some debaters I know prefer to write their notes on a piece of paper and just look at it and start to read out their points. This does not help you because it's not a podcast for that matter. It's an actual, people can see you, yeah? So people will judge you based on how you speak as well as how you look. So when we look at content, we are talking about your points and so on. But when we talk about style, my forte when it comes to teaching is that I focus a lot on style, and language. Language means the way you debate, the choice of words that you choose when you are debating. I've seen and heard debaters when they are trying to sound impressive, they want to look at the confident, they look at their opponent. And when I use the word opponent, why did I not use the word opposition but opponent? Because in a debate, if you're government, your opponent is the opposition. But if you are the opposition, your opponent is the government. So this is why I say opponent. I don't say government or opposition. Yeah, your opponent. In this case, I have seen students who are trying to rebut, and the choice of words that they use when they rebut really comes under language. Choice of words, like sorry. I've heard some speakers say this, like I don't know why I'm standing here listening to the opposition speak. Their comments are so stupid. I don't even know why we're wasting time listening. Does that constitute a good rebuttal? Actually, it does not. The use of the way you construct your sentence can be deemed very offensive, even to the judges, and it should not be used at all. The key word here, I think that you should all think of is finesse. It's a French word. It actually means class when you speak, your choice of words when you speak. You get more marks actually when you construct your sentences in a classier way. Yes, you are rebutting, I agree with you, but there are many ways in which you can construct your sentences that doesn't require you to use the word stupid or imbecile for that matter. There are actually many different synonyms to replace stupid, can be imbecile. But if you want a really classy way, you could say something like, I'm sorry, I'm keeping quiet here for a minute because I'm confused. I thought that I was in a storytelling competition because the tales that's being spun by the opposition is amazing. So full of creativity, but yet no substance, merely fiction. Now that's a rebuttal. Did I use the word stupid? No, I did not. So that's how finesse, and that's what we call by finesse. Now, if you remember what I said about the role of a debater, where it improves your public speaking skills, a lot of people seem to think that in public speaking and in communication skills, if I can write well means okay lah, I'm really smart already. But actually that's not the case. Like I said, how you say is also very important. Body language. If you look under manner in which I circled that 20% marks there, manner in which you sit or you stand, the way you present yourself when you are standing up is also quite important. In communication skills in our center, we teach them what we call the neutral human pose. A neutral human pose is actually your shoulders, the way you stand. So if you look at my shoulders right now, this is called a neutral. So if I turn my back to you and you're looking at my shoulders, you can't really tell how I'm feeling. Am I agitated? Am I tensed up? Am I scared? You're not able to tell. Now, if you do this, you have tensed up your shoulders very slightly and increase and bring it up to a more 90-degree angle to your neck. And that may not be clear to you, but if your judges are experienced, they would be able to tell the difference in your body language. Manner also includes the way you use your hands. How do you use your hands? Just a tip here for the guys. Some of you do not know what to do with your hands. Communication, these are called what we call communication tools. Your face is a communication tool. If I keep quiet and I just show my face, my smiling face communicates to you that I'm being friendly. But if I frown and I stop smiling, then it communicates a different message to you. So your face is a communication tool when you are trying to present your case, your argument. Likewise, how you stand, whether you shrug your shoulders, or you roll them back, it also talks about body language. Body language, hands. These hands are called communication tools because they do a lot here. What they do is that they actually help you to reaffirm your points. Like sometimes when you want to emphasize a point, if you notice how I'm using my hands, I'm emphasizing a point. If I want to talk about something in the past, I would use the other hand to move backwards. These are ways that I could use to present my points, yeah? I know a lot of kids or students, I might say, who do not know what to do with their hands. These two limbs here suddenly becomes like foreign objects to you when you have to stand up and the world can see you from top to toe. So what happens that some of you, especially the boys, you put your hands in your pocket, yeah? I tell my students this, your hands affirms your message. So basically, your hands can also be a distraction. So you should not be moving them a lot while you're presenting. Neither should you be keeping them in your pockets throughout your presentation because your hands draw attention to yourself. Therefore, it can either serve as a distraction because the judges are not going to be listening to you because they're so busy looking at how your hands are flying, or it can help to send your point across, to make it look more impressive just by using your hands and your face. Yeah, that's called manner. Also, your voice. Your voice is a very powerful tool. So communication tools means that your face is a tool. Any part of your body that communicates a message to the audience is a tool. Your face, your hands, even your body. So if let's say you don't know, okay, so oh no, Ms. Adeline says don't put my hand in my pockets because it's a distraction. Because it is. Because when you guys put your hands in your pocket, what do you do with your hands? Do you just keep them in your pockets or you start to shake them up and down? So when you start to shake your pockets up and down, guess where the eyes are. So it's really not suitable for you to put your hands in your pocket. Usually what I tell them to do is that you can do this. Yeah, you can hold your hands like this, right? Or use them to present your points. Don't do this because this is quite defensive, meaning that, there is a science behind our hands, what we do with them. You cross your hands like this. Basically, it means you're in defensive mode. You're no longer listening or you don't like what you're hearing. So don't cross your hands in the middle of a speech. Also, when you are sitting down. Okay, oh no, teacher, but I'm sitting down. It's not my turn yet. Also, well, yeah, to a certain extent, how you bring yourself throughout the entire debate is quite important as well. So just doesn't mean that you're the one that's not standing up. Doesn't mean you get to sit like this. And then, you get to act very relaxed in your presentation. You still need to adopt or respect the protocol. Yeah. So that's manner. All right. So I talked about face, I talked about hands, I talked about the body, and now more importantly would be your voice. Your voice plays a very important role. Tone is very important. If you go too high pitch all the time, for some it might be a bit difficult for the judges to listen too long. It becomes very painful for the ears. It actually refers to the way you breathe, your inhalation. We call it diaphragmatic breathing, meaning I always tell my students this: you have a built-in microphone in your diaphragm. How you exhale your air actually contributes to the strength of your voice. So if you're not really exhaling hard enough, then people will be listening to you just like this only lah. So they cannot hear much. So that doesn't make you a very impressive speaker, particularly when it comes to debates. And that's why, if you remember my last point, the benefits of being a public in debates is that you learn leadership skills. And part of leadership skills is the way you speak as well, where it commands respect, where it commands to be heard. Yeah. And when it comes to voice, we actually have your pitch, your tone, which is your pitch, which refers to the high and the low of your voice. What does that matter? Okay, so for some of you, when you're reading your points, what happens when you read your points? You hold on to it and then you start reading it like this. Dear judges, today I stand here as government side presenting my case to all of you. That's what we call a monotone. You're not applying your pitch at all. You're not going high, neither are you going, basically you're just going one tone. Yeah. For some might argue, I got pitch, right? I mean, I have pitch because I talk like this all the time, and this is how I'm talking all the time. So, ladies and gentlemen, so that is not exactly a variation of pitch as well. That impressed the judges. Neither does it. And even when you're trying to rebut, the way you rebut, if you're going to say it like this, so I asked the government side, I challenged them, why do they say it like this? It's not really very impressive rebuttal. So if you power your words, so what's power? So the word power means, wow. So you use your face, your hands to power the word up. And you pause because you want the power to hit people. It's like power, like coffee. Wow, when you drink some, it's like power. So like the word power, you power your words. You power not all your words, but the words that you wish to deliver the message. The important words that you want the judges to listen to so that they actually give you some marks. Okay? So I'm going to give you an example now. So these are the 4 things that I just addressed. The pitch, the high and low of your voice. It's important so that people don't fall asleep. Pace is the speed at which you speak. Too fast, nobody will understand you. Too slow, you put people to sleep. So a variation of both. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow. When do I go fast? When do I go slow? Well, that if you join debates, then you might learn that. Yeah. Your pausing. The pausing is very important because it leads to the power. Before you power a sentence, a word up, you need to stop. Why? To get that breath that you need to actually power the word out. Because if you don't, it's like, let's put it this way. Pausing is for your breath. Think of it this way. A sentence that you have written is like the length of a pool, the length of an Olympic pool. And you're going to swim from this end till that end. All right? Now, in that length, you would probably have only like what? How many times, how fast are you going to exhale so that you can reach to the other end of the pool? So naturally, if you have only one breath of air, then you would release that breath slowly to ensure that you are able to cover more distance before you eventually run out of air. Likewise, in speech work, you will slowly exhale and not rush the air out because you are trying to save that air to a certain part before you come up for air and come back down again, in which case, before you can reach the pool. In which case, I'm talking about the air that is left in your diaphragms so that you can finish your sentence. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate to you the entire technique of of pitching, pacing, pausing, and power. Now, the reply speeches, these are your marks as well. You have your excellent. The reply speeches are out of 50. So if you can see here, it is explained in the concept paper. So I will let Puan Kapana explain it. But sorry, looking at the speeches first, which is over 100, you have what you can see as excellent, good, average, satisfactory, and weak, the percentage of marks. Now, I'm going to demonstrate to you how you use your pitch, your pace, and your pause, and your power. This is a part of a sonnet from a Shakespeare play called The Merchant of Venice. Why is this teacher even remotely showing you this? Because I use it as an opening statement, sometimes to sound classy, impress the judges, and at the same time, throw the opposition or my opponents off their feet because they will feel very nervous that the speaker that they're confronted with has good vocabulary or a good grasp of the language. If you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you poison us, do we not die? And if you wrong us, shall we not revenge? Now, this is what we call a silent pregnant pause to allow the judges to ingest what I just said. Then I go in for the kill and say, the opposition has set out to defame us by making us sound like storytellers, weaving this fictional tale. Well, we are about to prove them otherwise. And then you present your point. So that is how you would use your pitch, your pace, your pause, and your power in a phrase like this, or in a short little write-up like this, your short introduction to impress someone. Do you need to call someone stupid? No. Do you need to insult their intelligence? Yes, maybe, but you don't need to call them stupid. You can do it in this way. Yeah? That would be my recommendation to all of you. So, Puan Kapana, I'm actually done with my presentation right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and would you like to present the last keyword or?
Yes, the last one before we close the workshop. Yes. Thank you,
Okay, so
Adeline. Just
sorry.
hold on. Do not leave yet. Adeline, do not leave. Just hold on.
No, I'm not leaving. But I just want to say that Blubricks wishes all of you good luck
Okay.
in your debates. And I know that maybe some things that I've shared here may sound intimidating for those who really, really want to take debates. But I promise you that if you give it a shot, you would definitely see a great change in you. You see people like Sheikh Sadiq online. You see people, great speakers online, and you envy them because you think that how do they do it? Well, this is your chance to try. And I do encourage everyone to try. Yeah. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, Adeline. Okay, can you see me? Okay, yes. Thank you very much, Adeline, for a very concise presentation. To me, it was. Okay, I just would like to thank you once again, Adeline. Despite your very tight schedule, you did not hesitate at all when I asked for your presence today. Thank you so much. All right. Okay, students, teachers, are you ready for the third keyword? Okay. Okay, Shwada, slide please. Okay, This is the third keyword, manner. Adeline spoke at length about this component of the marking standard. So this is the keyword, manner. Make sure the word is in capital letters. All right, students, got it down? Okay. Okay, Shwada. Okay, so we have come to the end of the workshop. After listening to Adeline, boys and girls, students, I hope you now you have a clearer picture of what debating is all about, and I hope to see more participation, more teams, okay, participating in this year's state level debate competition. All right, is Encik Hariman here? No. Okay, I would like to thank everyone involved directly, everyone, the teachers, Shohada, Miss Adeline. Okay, most importantly, Miss Adeline, Encik Amir, yang belakang tabir. Thank you so much. Thank you, teachers. Thank you, team managers. Thank you, students. I know some of you were chatting, wasting your time chatting, but I know that many were listening to us. All right. Thank you very much.